And so the Duke of Tears retired to the obsidian halls of Peru and sat upon his throne built of microphone bones and contemplated the design of the pocket universe.
This right here is a melanin neoform. This thing right here is called a melanin or melanaic neoform. This is an example of a harvested pineal gland that has been put through radical ionization or radical radioactive therapy. This is it in its original form. This is it in its original form. This is it once it becomes irradiated by whatever photonic energy that they bombard it with after the actual pineal extraction. Now I want you to really look at this thing because I'm about to show you something else that relates to it directly. Since we started this class, there's been a lot of stuff about plasma and plasma weapons and stuff in mainstream media that's been coming out, as well as pineal organ harvesting and pineal organ ingestation. Mainly, one of the biggest movies I've seen at this in recently is this movie called Limitless. Now, for those people who haven't seen it yet, it basically is a little pill that this white dude takes, and it allows him to use 98% of the brain. We learned last week that the reason why we don't use 98% of the brain instead of the only 2% that we're dealing with is based upon our own mental inhibition of our melanin cycle or our melanin cycles. Like the same way that your women or a woman would be knowledgeable about her menstrual cycle, your melanin goes through aspects that could be construed as a menstrual cycle as well, but we don't know anything about these cycles. Your melanin cycle is attracted and connected to the cycles of the moon. But within this melaninic cycle, however, or whoever they extracted this thing from, they basically pulled it out, and then once they irradiated it, it began to glow. Once this thing cools, see it's still hot right here. Once it cools, it becomes very, very clear. It becomes a clear almost thing that can be ingestible, right? So based on that, there was a movie that just came out, like I said, called Limitless. And in this movie, they are ingesting pineal glands, specifically melanated pineal glands. Bless you. In the movie, they call it NZT, right? But we already know what the T stands for. The N is neuro, right? Or neutron, right? The Z is really not a Z. This would be more of a number. This would, instead of looking at this as Z, you should look at this as the number 26, because that's the last number in the alphabet. Now, 26 represents the 26-sided sphere that we call reality, that reduces the soul to an act of spiritual infancy. Excuse me, the body into spiritual infancy. So the T represents tyrosinase, right? So as you can see, it says accessing 100% of your brain is possible with NZT. Boom. Do you feel constantly unfulfilled by life, work, relationships? Do you aspire to things that you believe you could never accomplish? Do you wish you could tap into all your unrealized potential? If you said yes to any of the above, then NZT might be right for you. So as you can see, he's holding this little thing right here. You can't really see it. I wish I could zoom in on it. Let me see. But as you can see, it's the same what he's ingesting. When you look at it in the movie, you'll see that it's a very clear pill. That clear pill that he is taking is a neoform pineal gland. And when you watch the movie, you get to see how far these people really go for these things. Here it is. This is an actual thing from the movie. See it? This is it right here. So the fact that they're calling this thing limitless is, the movie is limitless. When you watch the movie, it basically shows you how everything starts and ends through and without the pineal, through and with the pineal gland. It's just that in the course of the movie, the person who is ingesting this pineal gland, they don't tell you where it comes from, who manufactures it, or how, but they do tell you what it does and what you see, what Caucasian people are going to have to go through just to obtain it. There's a scene in the movie where the guy basically takes the pineal glands, the pills, the NZT pills, liquefies them, puts them in a syringe, and injects himself with it like heroin. But what happens is the guy winds up killing himself or hurting himself or whatever, and winds up bleeding. It gets to the point that the main character, because he don't have no more than NZT to take, he got to get it. He winds up drinking this dude's blood. You know what I mean? This thing, these people turn into cannibals trying to ingest this thing. And this is a part of their culture, or is becoming more and more a part of their culture every day. Now, we as the original people, like I said, we don't really have that issue. This is what you look like as carbon-14 when they're doing a actual mathematical algorithm on you. You see, this is you. All of this right here that they building on, this is what you look like. You know what I'm saying? As they're building on. Anytime they're building on carbon-14, anytime they're building on Birkeland currents, anytime they're building on non-baryonic matter, anytime they're building on dark plasma, anytime they're building on plasma, anytime they use the inference pi, anytime they use any of that, and all of that is equating to you. Because anything that they equate, they have to equate us into it, because that's the only way it's going to really get done. You know, we say this, but I don't think sometimes we go as far deep as to how far this really goes, or how truthful this really is. This is also a graph to show you the condensation of carbon-14. Now, we already went into it last week that carbon-14 is basically the element, is basically another way of saying Aseer, who is the father of Heru, who was cut up into 14 pieces, and who was Lord of the land, who got thrown into the sea. And after he got thrown into the sea, it was Aseer that had to remember and bring all 14 pieces back into existence, but she found every piece except the phallus. So she fashioned a reed out of gold, and was able to then sit on the phallus and then create Heru from that. So that was, in a sense, ritualistically, the first form of sex magic. You know what I mean? So symbolically, this carbon-14 as an atom is basically representative of the death and regeneration of Aseer. So instead of calling it carbon-14, we called it Aseer. So whenever we talked it into existence, Aseer itself is the physical representation or deity that represents this universal breaking down and getting up aspect of creation and reality, which is why Aseer is revered and had so many cults in the beginning. But before the Aseerian cults, there was the Set cults, you know, and they were dealing with that as well. I'm sorry. Where'd it go? I don't know if y'all was seeing that when I was talking about it. Yeah, I just want to make sure y'all saw it. I don't know if y'all was seeing it. There you can see here he goes going in on you. So you see all of the pyramids. You see all of the trine essences, which are basically representing DNA lattices. You see all of the ciphers. You see all of the hydrogen, right? And again, this is the mathematical equation for what we would concern as carbon-14, or aka the god Aseer.